they described 2023 in a really peculiar way. They said, you're going to feel this whole year, almost until the fall of 2023, like you stepped into a kaleidoscopic tube and you're walking through the tube and everything is shifting and changing and moving around you. And there's this interesting sense of stability. You feel centered and grounded in yourself. You know, you're kind of there holding your own, but it's like you're moving forward and everything around you is constantly in transformation. And the moment you think you understood something, it changes again. It's like nothing seems to stay in focus. It's just all this moving, right?
Welcome to the Sacred Planet podcast. I am your host, Jocelyn Starfeather. We are living at the end of a massive 26,000 year cycle. This is a cycle that can be defined not astrologically, but astronomically by the movement of the North Star in the sky. Every 26,000 years, we come back to the original North Star. The times that we are living in now are when one of these 26,000 year cycles is ending and a new one is beginning. And so this is why this time when we are alive right now has been foretold in the ancient prophecies of many indigenous and ancient peoples all around the world, from almost every continent. This is why the world feels so chaotic, so uncertain, and so unstable right now, because we are truly shifting from one age, one massive 26,000 year age, into a new one. This is also why we are seeing so many changes in our own lives, so many changes in the world. It's because the systems and structures, the patterns and beliefs that we have been carrying for an extremely long time are collapsing. They are breaking down. And this is terrifying and also very exciting, because those of us who are alive at this time, we get to choose what we will build next. We get to choose who we want to become in this new era. So it's really important to know during these times that these are actually not only ending times. This is not meant to be an apocalypse. This is actually meant to be the closing of a door to the old ways of being and the opening of a door to the new ways, to the radical new world that we are here to build together. We are here at this time, at this momentous time, to choose what will come next. And so let us dream into a world that our children and grandchildren and the next 7 generations will be delighted to inherit from us. And let's begin creating it one by one from within ourselves. That is where all change must begin, is from within every individual, and then it is rippled out to the world in miraculous and beautiful ways. Here in the Sacred Planet podcast, we will be talking about spiritual awakening. We will be talking about the massive changes that are happening in our world, and we'll be talking most importantly about how you can support yourself, how you can feel most healed and healthy and whole and inspired and uplifted and ready to build this new world together, ready to choose who you wish to become next as all of the old falls away and we are left with a blank slate to create anything that we wish, anything that we dream into the future. Welcome to the Sacred Planet podcast. I can't wait to share the incredible speakers and topics that we'll be sharing here on the podcast, and I hope that it will be a tremendous inspiration to you in your own life. I am your host of the podcast. My name is Jocelyn Starfeather. I am the founder of Sacred Planet. Sacred Planet is a global community of people who are awakening to their true power and magic within and co-creating together and uplifting and inspiring one another as we build this radical new world together. I can't wait to share more with you. I'll see you soon in our next podcast episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sacred Planet podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am delighted to be here today with Dr. John Ryan. Hi, John. Thank you so much for being a part of this and welcome.
Hi, Jocelyn. Well, thanks so much. And thanks for including me. I'm really delighted to be here. I always really enjoy our conversations. So this will be fun.
Yes, me too. We have some really good conversations. Great. Let me introduce you to everyone. Dr. John Ryan, MD, is a professor of medicine and practitioner of energy and consciousness-based medicine. He is the author of Unity Field Healing, Volume 1, Foundations of Energy Medicine and Quantum Healing. And he is the founder of Unity Field Healing, or UFH, a new quantum process based on conscious activation of the DNA field to support healing and personal evolution. John channels the Sirian Blue White Collective, who support UFH and humanity's ascension through Ascension transmissions. And I just want to say, John, I so deeply respect and honor your work. As I mentioned, I know people who you have really helped to catalyze their awakening, change their lives through what you're bringing forward. And I just feel like you've been bringing this paradigm shifting information to the world way ahead of the curve, ahead of when we all knew we needed it. So thank you so much for all that.
Oh, thank you so much, Jocelyn. It means the world to hear that from you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, our topic for today, I can't wait to dive into, is starseeds and star families. So I'm wondering if you could begin, because this is such a big part of what you're bringing to the world. If you could begin by telling us a little bit about the Sirian Blue White Collective and how they're supporting your mission in the world.
Sure, yeah. So the Sirians, going back a little bit in time here. So the Sirians came to me first, Jocelyn, in a meditation. That's how they presented themselves to me. And they came in an unusual way. I was in a meditation. It was actually in a workshop. And I'm sitting there and we're being guided through this meditation. And this big ball of light forms in my third eye vision. And I'm seeing this light field. And then it was like an array of beings kind of stepped out of the light field into like this, it looked like a choir or an orchestra of all these like light beings that came out of this big ball of light. And they had this beautiful blue tinge. They were mostly like this white silvery starlight, but it had this beautiful blue tinge to it. And as I'm looking at it, I could hear their name, and it was the Sirian Blue White Collective. And I thought, well, that's very appropriate, looking at the light. And they explained that they're a group of light beings, and they work really as a collective. And they presented themselves to me that way so I could register in my consciousness the nature of who they are and what was happening. And in the work I've done over the years, I've had a lot of experiential teachings that come from shamanic type visions or, dream type visions. And so this is kind of in alignment, I guess, with some of those other experiences, because as you know, when you have these shamanic kind of qualities to a meditative experience, every detail in what you're seeing has meaning, like whether there's 1 or 3 or 10 or 20 or too many to count, like that detail would be important. When the colors, the position, the things that are there, the things you notice that aren't there, like all of it can have meaning in terms of this symbolic content of the vision. And so they presented themselves this way to me because they knew that's how I would interpret it, because I'm kind of seasoned, I guess, in doing that. And so I realized the message was we work as a collective and we can present ourselves in different faces or as different beings or to work individually with one person at a time. But we really work as a collective. We're kind of a consciousness that understands itself together as one. And so even though we're different faces, we work as a unity. And what was interesting for me was I was well into the healing work that I've been doing over the years, and it's the Unity Field healing work that I do, which was again inspired by kind of a series of visions that began to teach me how to work in the quantum DNA field in energy treatment sessions. And as they presented themselves to me, immediately a channeled message kind of came forth. And they said, they in consciousness are here at this point in time, presenting themselves in a more conscious way, or, within human consciousness as a registered experience, because of the nature of what's happening on the earth and the transition that humanity is undergoing. And so they explain that we're living in a metamorphosis, and the nature of what's truly changing is not simply a paradigm of thought or a social paradigm of simple consciousness. It's a whole energetic paradigm, and we're moving into a whole different way of living and being on the planet. And it happens through our DNA. The way that humans register this change and experience it is through the field of quantum information that's part of that DNA structure. And it's beginning to resonate in different ways. It's beginning to open new channels of memory and communication. It's beginning to bring healing of very esoteric principles, back into our mindset and our ability to perform and do. And this whole internal transformation is something that's open to humanity at this time. And everybody is undergoing the shift, but there are people whose, I guess, purpose or destiny, in essence, is to be a way shower. They're meant to undergo this transformation in a bit more conscious way and be there in a role of service, really, to help other people be able to achieve the same thing, because it's not something that's for a select few or an elite group of spiritual beings or anything like that. It's open to humanity at large. And anybody who resonates with that understanding and is open has this available to them. And so they were very expressive in the fact that they're here in a role of service. They're here to support humanity through this transition. We can think of them as technical experts in quantum DNA, to satisfy our mind. We can conceptualize them that way. And but they explain that they've been part of the unity field healing work. And they came to me at that time because they wanted to introduce a new project. And in order to do the new project, they couldn't just be invisible and hidden in the background working with us. They had to kind of come forward and present themselves in a more exposed kind of a way. And so that was the beginning of what today has become known as the Sirian Blue White transmissions. And so every month they conduct a transmission and they give themes of these transmissions. And so every year has kind of a cycle theme, like the 12-month frame will have a theme. They give them to me typically in blocks of 3. I call them seasonal triads, like spring, summer, winter, fall. And the 3 transmissions will often be connected in some way, but I don't always see the fullness of the theme until the year is finished. They give them to me in bite-sized pieces. And so now last year, for the first time, they gave me the whole cycle as a theme, but then continued to add information about each specific transmission. So that was a little bit of a shift in the way they do it. But what they do in these transmissions is they provide kind of an inspired teaching. And through the teaching, there's a light language transmission that's given at the end of the teaching. And it's to really anchor or ground not just the intellectual principles, but the energetic transformation that's really embedded in the principles into the audience or the people who are participating. And then we do a meditation. And so the meditations are a guided journey, and they take form in a process where I'm seeing things in my third eye, and a little bit like a reporter, I'm basically narrating what I'm seeing, and that becomes the guidance for the actual journey. And so people have very personal experiences in their own inner space, and they may mirror what I'm saying in words, or they may be off on a completely other energetic tangent, depending on what's really personal and appropriate for them. And they will guide us through the journey, and then they will come with us in those journeys. You'll feel them, and people who are sensitive to energy will sometimes feel their presence with them while we're doing the transmissions, or even see them in light form. And so they come with us on these journeys, and they're there, and they always sign off in a beautiful way. They say, together we, through the light of the central sun, or the great central sun, we are with you together, for we are one. They'll always say that in some form. And they remind us that even though they are spiritual and interdimensional, and of course we can see that in all kinds of glamorized ways or interesting ways, they're very down to earth about it. And they say, you can just think of us as family, like we're brothers and sisters, and we're in a different experience in incarnational cycle and in the way our reality is right now compared to the earth. But you can't frame spiritual understanding based simply on a material manifestation. Our souls are eternal. Our souls are as luminous as theirs are, and we're on a journey or a mission to be part of the Earth's evolution at this point in time. And they're here to help us in that. And they're here specifically because this is a critical time on the Earth where the nature of the transformation that's taking place cannot even be fully understood. It's so profound and far-reaching. And we need that kind of help because as we go through a transition, we're veiled to a lot of understanding and knowledge. And from their vantage point, they have it, so they can help us. And so they're here in that role of service to help us walk through this journey with grace and ease and all the support that we can possibly receive. And so it's been pretty amazing, like the experience of being with them in the transmissions, working with them in this capacity, as a guide, but also to see the transformation that people get to experience by participating themselves. And the stories, that people will return to me about their experience with the Sirians and with the transmissions. And I take no ownership of it. It's a personal process. It's something we're all undergoing, and they're just here working in this way to guide us through that space, that portal of time. And so the love they generate, the luminosity that they generate, the wisdom that they speak, like sometimes the way they will put phrases to, like words to phrase, it blows my mind. Like I read them sometimes afterwards and I think, how did that even conceive itself as a thought form? Because the words are so beautiful, and they contain this power of transformative integration. Like you read the words and you can't not be changed by what you read, or you hear the words and you realize you can't not be changed. And you see the magical power that holds to help push us forward and to help us open up the light inside of us and to awaken our soul's energy and destiny. And it's really a beautiful thing. It's a long answer. Sorry.
Yes, no, that was wonderful. That was so helpful and so powerful to hear. And I strongly recommend everybody listening to go to your website and check out your upcoming transmissions, because they really are this incredibly powerful thing to experience, and to really let yourself fully immerse in that shamanic journey, fully immerse in the wisdom that is shared. And we really do need this support right now. What you said, as far as it's so much bigger than our minds or ourselves can possibly comprehend.
Yeah.
It really does feel that way. And so I love that you're bringing through this message that, these transmissions coming through, you are here to support us in that way. And I welcome everybody we need to tune into all of our guides at this time, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's our star families or our animal guides or our angelic guides, because they can see things that we can't see.
Yeah.
And we have so many resources available to us when we do tune in with them and let their words and their wisdom flow through us and inform and guide us. So this is a vast remembrance, for us to come back into connection with. Well, so the Sirians have some really strong messaging around how, what we're moving into. So could you say a little bit more about that?
Sure. The just before I touch on that, there's one thing you said, Jocelyn, that really touched me. I love to hear it. It's a remembering, and I think that's so important for all of us to grasp and understand. As the Sirians work with us in the capacity that they do in the transmissions, they're always reminding us. They're always saying, we're here to remind you. We're here to help you remember. We're here to help you reconnect. We're here to help you rekindle. They have all these, verbs that they will use that just trigger in us this awareness that something is awakening in us. And as it does, we feel in our experience like we're remembering things. And it's because it is there. It's just been hidden. It's been purposefully hidden. It's been like the earth has been on a journey where it was required that was the design of reality. And as we go forward, that veil is lifting, and we're getting a peek of all kinds of things that are on the other side, not just light beings and star families and things, but the whole realm of spiritual existence and what we could call a multidimensional or quantum structure to the nature of things and how energy is built. And so as we go through this remembrance, it's like shifting from black and white into color. Like the nature of reality is so profoundly changed that we have to be very gentle with ourselves and very kind with ourselves and very patient with ourselves and very tolerant with ourselves and all the things that you would list as an avatar's way of life. You're going to be a spiritual being. They all are on the list. But they start with ourselves, and we have to really be that way because we're like children. We don't really know quite yet where we're going or what this new world is really going to be. We just are really, really infantile, at the level we are, and we're awakening to it. And it can be fun and a discovery like that. And I think that's really the right approach. If we kind of take it through the way children take things, I think it serves us well, because it can be mentally overwhelming if we try to understand it, all that kind of stuff. So that's a little bit of an aside, but I think an important thing for us all to kind of ponder on and reflect, because it's easy to be harsh on ourselves or not understand the nature of the transformation. And then to realize too, as we live it in this world, there's a tremendous challenge to what we're doing. The world is changing. It feels like it's kind of disintegrating under our feet. There's this uncertainty, this, fraughtful anxiety about what's happening on the planet. Everything from, nature cycle changes to politics, to social norms, to, just the list goes on and on. And so as we go through this metamorphosis, we're caught up in this soup of change. And the Sirians are always bringing us back to that understanding. And every year they'll give kind of a theme message. They don't do this too often, but it's usually in the fall of the year, I'll get a channeled message that's kind of a preparation, I guess, a consciousness preparation for the energy of what's to come. And so they described 2023 in a really peculiar way. They said, you're going to feel this whole year, almost until the fall of 2023, like you stepped into a kaleidoscopic tube and you're walking through the tube and everything is shifting and changing and moving around you. And there's this interesting sense of stability. You feel centered and grounded in yourself. You're kind of there holding your own. But it's like you're moving forward and everything around you is constantly in transformation. And the moment you think you understood something, it changes again. It's like nothing seems to stay in focus. It's just all this moving light. And I think it was a brilliant.
True.
Isn't it?
True. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this was kind of what they said we're in now. And I was really grateful they shared that message, because I found the year unsettling. Like I feel very stable and there's so many interesting things happening and I'm relatively excited about it most of the time, but there's so much that can get into our psyche, like it's just the living through the changes is not always easy. And to hear the message and reflect on it and think, oh, that's how it's actually supposed to be. So if it's supposed to be like that, there's nothing to worry about. Let's just carry on, ride on. And it allows us to kind of not get hooked into the kind of worry or anxiety or other emotional things that can become part of it when we're uncertain in that way. And so I found that message to be tremendously reassuring. But they've also said that so much of what's changing on the planet, we can think in two different ways. We can think in terms of energy, and we can think in terms of consciousness. And so our consciousness is transforming. We're becoming aware of the earth as part of a system of life. It's part of a solar system, part of a galactic system, part of, a creation system, if you will. It's part of a creation. And it's not a planet that's kind of existing on its own with life on it and life nowhere else. And we're starting to realize it's part of something much bigger and much vaster than our elementary science in astronomy would teach us about. And so there's things changing in that way in consciousness. We're becoming more aware of those things. We're becoming more aware of energetic reality. People speak a language that's energy based now. That's not the way people spoke years ago. Like, I walked into a meeting not long ago, and one of the chiefs of the department was talking about resonating with the vibe in the room. And I thought, well, there you go. Like, okay, you got the message. But it's just a beautiful illustration of how that language has infiltrated our everyday, like our thinking and our minds. And so we're beginning now to think more in terms of both energy and consciousness. And the value of that, I think, is it makes reality more fluid, in that before we see things as energy, if we see them as solid, they're so structural, they're so embedded, they're so created, they're so stuck that they seem immutable. But when we start understanding reality as an energy experience, we realize it's in constant transformation. And so the earth is an energy system. Our human body is an energy system. Everything that's created in reality is part of an energy system. Nature is part of that energy system. And all of these things have communication. They have interrelationship. They're part of even bigger systems of energy. And as we go through that consciousness awakening, we come exposed to the energies of what they contain. And so we're starting to realize we can work in healing capacities with sound, with energy, with conscious thought, with love, with these kinds of things that would be poo-pooed years ago because people wouldn't understand the potential of them. But because we're moving into this more energetic, structured reality, then we can change energy and therefore change reality. And we become aware of our role as creators in the reality. So since we are consciously creating and living in an energetic system that we are imposing our consciousness on, if you will, we have the capacity to bring very positive change to that energy system and to that world. And that's what I see humanity undergoing right now. And we see it more on the underside of the change that's taking place. On the surface, we're seeing the breakdown. We're seeing systems fall apart. We're seeing polarity and division. We're seeing crazy, ancient, old ways of thinking resurfacing and being put back into law and all this kind of foolishness that, like, it's all going to be undone again, but we have to live through this mess, I guess, while it's all taking place. And you kind of see that happening and you look at it and you think, we're not going forward, we're going backward. But that's not what's happening. We're going forward with such intensity that there's a lot of holding on. There's a lot of resistance within the energy to do it because it's moving so fast. But we'll get to a point where everything will just kind of have to pop or burst, and that all has to be undone again. But that will happen very, very quickly as we move forward. And we're going to start to see in the next generation, like the younger generation, they think and experience reality in a very different way. Like if you have experience with kids and teenagers and things, you'll probably resonate very deeply with what I'm saying. They're different, and we know they're different, and it's a beautiful thing. They're highly creative. They're very autonomous. They have an innate sense of their own spiritual worth and destiny. They understand the power of working together to create positive change. They see through foolishness and deceitfulness and dishonesty with no effort. Like, it's just so transparent to them. And these are the leaders of tomorrow. So you can just see where they're going to bring us as they step into their own positions of authority and power and governance and, social leaders and all that kind of stuff. So we have to be a little patient with the process, because the magnitude of what's changing for humanity is so big, so vast, and so all-reaching that it's not going to happen in a day or a week. It's going to take a generation or two or three for it to really settle in. But what we're moving towards is an ascended consciousness. It's a world where we live in a different frame of reference. We're going to understand we are not religious beings, we're spirit beings. We're beings that contain spiritual light. We come from the creator light. We are part of a spiritual civilization. The way that we manage our energy, the way that we deal with other people, the way we speak to them, the way we treat them, all has an impact on the collective nature of the energy of the whole. And nobody's ever served well if I win to hurt by hurting someone else to make them lose. Like, all these principles of competition and all that kind of stuff will be totally transformed in our everyday thinking. And we're going to start working together in very different ways. Now, that doesn't mean we won't have problems to solve, or, issues between people or families or countries or other things, but we'll approach it with a much higher consciousness to create solutions that really are destined to benefit everybody involved. And so many of the forces that control reality right now, like the dark stuff that tends to make poor decisions for the collective, for someone's greed or someone's individual prosperity and all this kind of stuff, all of that will become impossible in the new energy. As much as it's part of our reality now, it won't even be a possibility as we move into the energy of what's coming. And so, they're breathtaking things to say, I realize, because we feel like we've been struggling with that for such a long epoch of time, but that is the nature of the change that's taking place. So the Sirians always have messages that are trying to govern our thinking and orient our thinking towards what we are becoming, and to stay focused on that path, to stay focused on that understanding, to stay focused on that luminosity, and not to get too distracted. Like, if we do, then just recover and move on, get yourself back together and start again. But do your very best to kind of keep in a frame of mind that allows you to stay on that path, and the balance that brings, and the hope and the effervescence, I guess is the word I'm looking for, the effervescence that allows into our lives, because we need that bubbliness. We need to feel that sense of hope and life, to realize that what we're living through right now is tough but worth it, and that it's bringing us to something extremely magnificent that we can barely understand. And all of their messages will always come back to that core idea. They always do.
That's so incredibly beautiful. Thank you for sharing this outlook for the future. And I love the word effervescence. Says a lot.
You look like you have little light bubbles behind you with your lights.
Effervescence in the video. It's so fascinating, I'm going to bring an astrology tie in here. It's just so fascinating as I was listening. And I always, I have this astrological and astronomical kind of approach to things naturally. What you're saying is so profoundly aligned with the themes of Pluto moving into Aquarius, which just happened earlier this year. And Aquarius has been quite activated by the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in 2020, and now Pluto moving there. But these ideas of egalitarian leadership, for example, it's not the people at the top that have all the power and money. It's more of a youthful leadership and a more community grassroots kind of leadership, and that the old order must fall, it just fits so beautifully with what you're saying. And
That's amazing. I wasn't really aware of that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear. And it's just so interesting, because when we hear these concepts of what we're moving toward in the future, it can be hard to grasp, because we feel like we're in such a different place right now. But many different modalities of discerning that all point to the same thing, right? So then it gives us a little bit more peace and a little bit more assurance about, that we can trust these.
Yeah, an empowered peace.
Empowered peace, yes. Yeah, an effervescent and empowered peace.
We've solved it all.
And it's really helpful, because as you know very well, it's not just the external events happening, it's that we're going through so much on inner levels, emotional levels, changes in our personal lives, that do feel really difficult to navigate at times. The intensity is high with these things right now.
Yeah, it's very, very true. I know the Sirians, when they're in doing the channel part of the messages, they'll very often address this, and they will acknowledge humanity at this crossroads, understanding that it's not easy to live the experience we're living. And we forget that. Like, we kind of think we're superhero-ish in a way, where we can kind of just troubadour through anything and it's supposed to be okay. But no matter how courageous you are in spirit, no matter how strong you are in spirit, you still face the challenges of all this constant energetic change, and feeling isolated at times, and feeling unsupported at times, and feeling hopeless because things don't go fast enough. And, all this very human experience. It's a very difficult thing. And they always are reminding us it's different to see this experience through the lens of being in it than it is to see it from being outside. And so they can kind of view it more as an observer, while we're viewing it as an experiencer. And they recognize that's the tough role. That's actually the hard role, because it's not easy to do that. And they say the souls that are drawn to awaken to the knowledge, awaken to the experience, to do things that support themselves in participating in the ascension, the transformation, energetic changes, meditative changes, healing-oriented changes, dietary changes, all the things that are part of that they know to do this. They're called to do this because it's in their soul to be the kind of being that's meant to be in these places at these times to do this. And I find that really reassuring, because nobody gets up in the 3D world and tells you these things. Like, you're not going to, go speak to your best friend or your brother or your sister, and they're going to say, well, this is who you really are, and this is what you're really doing. So we don't understand ourselves in that frame of reference. But when they speak to us, they acknowledge us in that way. And it's really important, I think, for our souls to be seen by another being that carries that consciousness. It's like being witnessed. If you witness, it's a witnessing that allows you to kindle the strength within you to keep going on. And so the most magical thing, I think, that has been part of my experience working with the Sirians is that strength that comes from them. It's an internal strength that they're always igniting or fanning the flames. They're not giving it to us. They're giving oxygen so that it has the capacity to do its magic. And so that's how I always feel in working with them. They lift us up. They create a sense of power and buoyancy and possibility, because they know how very, very difficult it is. And with that, then we have the capacity to kind of really move through it and do all the good things.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been feeling lately that this, however deep the depths might be, or if we feel like we're in a time of darkness, we have equal access to the opposite of that, right? So as we're feeling so deep in the darkness, that we have access to even more light.
100%.
Raise us out.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully expressed.
Yes. I'm curious to ask you about kind of along those lines, this idea of the increased light coming in. We hear so much about solar flares, the increase in solar flares. And I think we're recording this in May 2023. I think the amount of solar flares so far this year is already like vastly more than we had in 2022. And that was already vastly above, what we'd had in previous years. Do you have any thoughts or insights on that? Or have the Sirians shared anything that is part of our journey here?
They have actually, Jocelyn. It's a wonderful question. The way that they've helped me understand this is, we'll think in astrological terms, because I find it's really helpful. You know how we can kind of see the Earth as the epicenter of our reality. I mean, the sun is the center of our solar system, but in terms of life for us, the Earth is kind of our epicenter. And the Earth is receiving a constant stream of energy from the sun. So the sun is like a powerhouse. It's the part of this little aspect of reality from which the energy is generated to send life and light into being. And so, but the sun doesn't just self-generate the light. The sun also receives light, which comes from other suns. And in fact, Sirius has often been identified as a sun behind our sun. It's like the pathway that light comes from the galactic core and is channeled into our sun and eventually into the Earth. And it's why the Sirians were so deeply connected with the Egyptian teachings and, the rising of Sirius, bringing on the fertility cycle in Egypt and all of the gods and goddesses that were part of the temple life and the healing magic and all those things, because it was recognized that the light of that star also is connected to the light of our star, our sun. But we can even go back deeper. And if we go all the way back through suns upon suns upon suns, we would go kind of to the great central sun. And so everything that's in creation is part of this energetic matrix, if you will. And things are moving in it. And they're moving in a really patterned way. And so our planet will go through rotational relationships with different planets as we're cycling around, and the sun and the moon and everything else. And we can begin to understand the consciousness influences of those positionings on the way it would structure the energy of the Earth in reference to those dominant energies or those patterned energies. And I think that's I don't understand a lot about astrology, but I think I understand the essence of it.
That's a beautiful description of it. Yeah. Okay.
And so we can keep getting bigger. And the Earth and this whole solar system is also moving through aspects of the whole galaxy, the whole galactic arm, and so on. And we can, get as big as we can possibly imagine in our mind how that would go back to the center. And so our solar system and our Earth is positioned to move into an energy that I don't think anybody can really understand other than to say it's like a big energy. People talk about the photon belt or different things. But I mean, I think what we can truly genuinely grasp as human beings is the idea, there's a lot of energy. We're moving into a place where there's a lot of energy that's going to be streaming on the Earth. And the reason the Earth had to go through this experience of ascension that we're talking about here in the background is because it was known that this was going to happen. And because what's going to happen in the days, months, weeks, decades moving forward is we're moving into this stream of energy. And as we do that, the energy that's arriving on the planet would overwhelm the planet if the planet wasn't prepared and positioned to receive that light in a way that's safe and balanced and integrative. And so before the Earth even gets to go into that energy, we had to stop and take a measurement. And that's what we talk about, the harmonic convergence, this measurement of energy. And a simple way of saying it is measuring human consciousness. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how conscious is collective humanity at this point in time. And we can substitute the word conscious for capable of understanding love. they're, they're kind of synonymous in what we're speaking of. How loving is humanity? How far has it moved into love as a fundamental expression of itself? And so we look at the world, and of course we see wars and global conflicts and struggles and all these kinds of things, and we think, well, not very far, I guess. We're still doing all this foolish stuff and in the background. But if you strip that away and you look at the everyday and you say, how are people with each other? How are mothers with their children? How are people in relationships with each other? And you look at humanity on a very microcosmic level, like not the big picture level, but the more individual, personal level, the amount of love that exists on this planet is phenomenal. And people are so full of it all the time. And they're so kind and giving and generous and nurturing in all kinds of ways, whether it's with our children or with our friends or with our congregations in a spiritual community or whatever. There's so many beautiful ways that people love with our work and the things that we do in service to humanity. And so when you look at humanity as a whole, the amount of love is really a lot, way more than we give ourselves credit for. And the measurement was kind of taken because we needed to understand, as the earth moves into this new energy experience, this new cycle, does humanity have enough capacity to love, to sustain the transformation that that's going to bring safely? And so that's really what the harmonic convergence was. We talk about dates and celestial times and positions of the equinox and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is, that's really what it is. It's this measurement of that consciousness pattern. And so at the time, the answer was yes, it is. And this is the whole reason why Ascension began. It's why we started talking about it. It's why people started having internal experiences of understanding things.
And just a side note, that was in 1987, right? Just to set the context.
Yes. Yeah, right. 1987. That's right. And so that kind of launched this whole beginning. But then in response to that, the Earth also had to be prepared. And so the electromagnetic grid of the planet was adjusted. It was adjusted in a way to strengthen and expand the electromagnetic grid to allow it to begin to integrate the future energies. Like, it had to be done as a foundational thing. So when we start talking about the aurora and all of these types of energies that are now witnessed and experienced and seen and recognized to be way more frequent than they used to be, or way more powerful than they used to be, or more full of color, or more full of, or they come further down the globe, what they really represent is the inflow of energy over the electromagnetic grid of the Earth that then cycles and spins down through the axis of the Earth. And when they're spinning down through the electromagnetic axis, it creates a field of light that we witness as the aurora borealis. And so it's a testament to the fact that we're in this new energy. We're in this space where this energy is being integrated. And because the electromagnetic changes were prepared, it allows the Earth to absorb that energy in a more direct way, but without spinning it out of control. So you can think of it like a top that was spinning. If you all of a sudden came along and gave it a really big push, it would knock the top off its axis because the energy is too powerful. But if it's spinning really strong and it's really stable and it's really able to hold itself through the energy, and then this energy comes upon it, it will integrate it and continue to spin. And that energy is coming upon the Earth. It is. And so we're integrating it, and it's that light and energy that's driving so much of the transformation. And so as the energy arrives on the Earth, there's a whole crystalline repatterning that takes place. There's a whole foundation of energy that we can think of as the new crystalline foundation of the future that's being activated and amplified. And on it, crystalline fields of light and energy that are going to become the matrix which gives form to the things that are going to exist in that new world. And so there's this flowering that's taking place on the planet. And as that energy comes down, it's nurturing that flowering of the crystalline energy on the planet. And so that will be what propels the planet into a new crystalline reality, an energy that's very, very strengthened and different and coherent in all kinds of ways that we're not really part of the old energy system. And when we really land there, when we really make the transition and we're there, because we're in transition now, but when we really land there, things will not be able to exist there that can exist in the old energy or can even continue to exist during the transition. But the transition will shift all of that. But when we get to the place where we're there, we're going to realize things couldn't be the way they were. For example, it would be inconceivable that a human being would genuinely want to hurt another one. Mm. And that's not our life today, but it is the life we're growing into. It would be a place where that would just not be the way of relationship, and people would understand that. And it comes with the maturity where if you found yourself inclined to do that, you'd be self-aware enough to know what to do, not to do it. Like you see what I mean? Like human consciousness will change. What it means to be a human being will change. And so the whole essence of everything will be transformed by that. Imagine if that's how we lived and that's how we approached a business decision, or how we approached a political decision, or how we approached a mining decision, or something that has an impact on the natural balance of the earth. Imagine if we had that frame of thinking and that way of being, and that's where we spoke from and came from when we made those decisions. You can see how positioning ourselves like that will change everything. It's the kinds of things that we would be able to tolerate or do today will be so different from what it's possible to tolerate and do tomorrow. But it won't be done in an aggressive way. It'll be done in a way of understanding. And that everything we lived to grow to this point, to become ready to take the step into the next, will be understood as a natural part of that evolution. And so we won't even look back and say, how could we have been so dumb? Or how could humanity be so foolish? It would be, no, that's what happens when you grow. And then you get to a point when you're ready to make a transition into the next thing. It's like a natural cycle in your life. You'll do things as a teenager, for example, that you're not going to do as a 20-year-old, or then again as a 30-year-old or 40-year-old. You'll make adjustments in your consciousness as you move.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And this is this beautiful unfolding that we're living in right now, that we get to live the path to how we get there, right? We get to live it and see how that blossoms. I had this beautiful image as you were sharing a few minutes ago of, our normal perception of the sunlight is the sun showers down and the flowers bloom and the animals can grow and everything. But this was just taking it to a whole other level, then the solar flares coming down on the crystalline structure, and just all of this incredible blossoming on an energetic level happening. And it was really beautiful.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so conceivable, isn't it? Like you can really appreciate that. We have enough experience now with quantum things and the artistic kind of representations that artists bring us of interdimensional spaces and energy, that we can speak this language and actually have a concept of the kinds of things that are happening. Even if we don't see it with our eyes, we can see it with our mind. And it's what you're saying is really beautiful and powerful, because we don't walk around every day seeing crystalline things or seeing interdimensional things. Most people don't anyway. But it's happening. And when you realize that is in essence what's happening inside, and it's not just manifest yet, it's kind of in the developmental phase. It's another one of those concepts that brings us peace. And the more we bring ourselves back to peace, the more we are prepared to keep walking, I think. So it's a very important fundamental teaching.
Yes, absolutely. We need all the inner peace that we can get at this
Yeah,
this
exactly.
stage of great change, because that really helps us to navigate it.
100%. We make such better decisions from there.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Wow. Well, thank you so much for all that you have shared today. This has been so powerful as always. And you have a great gift for taking these very vast concepts and really helping to ground them and make them understandable for us on a human level. So thank you for sharing that gift here.
Oh, thank you, Jocelyn. It's my pleasure. I really, I enjoy talking to you all the time, and I really enjoy sharing this with the whole audience too. So it's a
Yes.
really magical moment. These nice little convergences of time and thought.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I know everybody listening will be so uplifted and supported by this. Yes. And you have a wonderful free gift for us, which is a package of the Unity Field Healing. Would you like to say a little bit more about that? And I'll tell people where to find that link.
Sure, yeah. So I always like to do this, Jocelyn, when I'm speaking and doing things. It's I'll create a little contest where people can enter the draw, and I'll select 3 people to receive the whole audio package of Unity Field Healing. So it's a quantum-based energy healing process that works in the quantum DNA system of energy. So it's a lot to kind of digest as a thought form, but people can read about it. The easiest thing to do is read about it on the website, and they'll have a much better understanding, with the pictures and diagrams and things that will explain what the work is. But I will always select 3 people to be gifted with the audio package, so they'll receive all the meditations and healing program.
Wonderful. And this
Yeah.
is an incredibly valuable and life-changing gift. So thank you for offering this. And everybody who's listening and watching, if you scroll down just below the video or audio that you're tuned into right now, you will see the link to claim that gift and enter to win that amazing Unity Field Healing package. So thank you, John, for sharing this with the world too.
My pleasure.
Yes. Well, do you have any final words of wisdom? I'm feeling called to ask you that
Sure.
as we're closing here.
I think the message of the moment is to really take time in a personal way every day just to still yourself and be in a conscious space of inner peace. Just feel that reset point in your energy. And it doesn't have to last long. It doesn't have to be all day. You don't have to meditate for hours, but just take a few moments in the morning before you start the day, maybe again in the evening, or anytime during the day where you feel called to do it, or you feel like your energy is getting frazzled or busy or, uncoordinated in some way. And just be still, close your eyes, go inside and feel that integrative energy inside you. And it sounds like such a simple thing and an obvious thing, but it's something we don't do enough as human beings. And if we would do it, you would realize the value of doing it. We realize how powerfully that allows us to reset our energy. And because we're energy beings, we're in the middle of all these changes we've been talking about in the conversation. We're being influxed with all these powerful galactic energies and solar energies and astrological configurations that are challenging the energy to move in certain directions, and all those, wonderful things that you know about in the realm of astrology. And as we live through that, it's easy to get tossed around, like we're in the ocean and there's lots of movement and waves. But just to still ourselves, to go back in that place, to reset. And then when you open your eyes, come back into the world in that state of balance and begin to live again from that space. It's a simple message, but I think it's really powerful, especially in the energy of this year, because there's so much upon us and it's so constantly changing all the time that we need that consciousness anchor I guess is the nice way to say it, to be able to realize how valuable and important that is. So a simple message today, but that's really what's in my heart to share with people.
That's so important. And that is the way back to that inner peace and calm and stillness.
Yeah.
So yes, a very important message. Well, thank you. Thank you again, John. It's been a pleasure as always to speak with you. And I wish you all the best in everything that you are working on. I hope you've enjoyed this wonderful episode of the Sacred Planet podcast. Be sure to click like and subscribe to our channel so that you will receive future updates. You'll know when we go live and when we are publishing the new episodes. And also be sure to put a note in the comments. What did this episode mean to you? What did this speaker and this topic inspire and awaken in you? And how do you want to share that with the world in new ways going forward? I would love to hear in the comments. And while you're here, go ahead and click on another podcast episode and open your mind, open your heart to more beautiful wisdom from the podcast. Much love, everybody.